Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode number 52 of my GEMP game review series. I am your host, Chris Gogolin. Just make sure we got all the stream stuff going right. Awesome. Uh, let's see what we got going on in the old GEMP lobby right now. Maybe we can catch some games live in action. Oh, there's an OCS qualifier. Watch your step, and/or ops. Let's pop into that one real quick while I'm still setting up some other stuff for later on. We're back on our regular Monday schedules. It's been a few weeks off of that schedule due to Game of Thrones because I had to watch it on Mondays instead of Sunday night, like almost everybody else. But now that that show's over and done with, and Memorial Day has passed us, and we're into June, having some lovely summer weather. Let's jump into some live action. So we got a flip and/or ops here, taking on a watch your step, which always flips. Um, and we got our first look at a new Thrawn, Mithrandu. Doesn't appear in as many decks as people well, as people hoped he would, but as design hoped he would. But he pops up every once in a while. Obviously, his main text here is losing force to cancel starship weapons to keep stuff from being hit, and we get an Admiral's Order replacement as well. Old Thrawn would let you, that does stuff with Admiral's Orders, but in this case here, this is a pretty, it's a pretty interesting ship and whatnot. Now, obviously, the end or ops objective limits opponent draws no more than one battle destiny in each battle. That's universal. That's everywhere. It's the main benefit to flipping end or ops is to have that in play. Really comes in handy against Watch Your Step because all of their smugglers, where they've got two of them, they're always adding uh, an extra battle destiny, and then usually Captain Han's floating around here somewhere in space. Although it looks like he's probably dead already at this point because we've got Wedge and Lando on the Falcon, and that's it's Mirax and Elors on the Outrider. So I'm guessing there were some earlier space battles, and some pilots are here in the lost pile to have all these mismatches like that. Um, and is U3PO's cover broken? No, looks like he appears to still be undercover. Okay, he just happened to not be at the location where Luke is anymore. Better be one of my best ever. Oh, well, thank you for finally joining us, Grady. Glad you could tune in. Um, I know you really came just for the information about the OCS foil slips. Kevin put them in the mail to me today, so they usually get here in 3 or 4 days because he pays for priority shipping. Um, to send them over to me from the UK, so I should have them by the end of the week. And then I think he was sending me uh, April and May. He took a guess at what May was going to be. So that will be the first half of the OCS foils, and then we can start getting those mailed out to people so they have time to use them in all of their live tournaments coming up this summer, their states and regional championships, and then whether it's, then the U.S. Continentals coming up in August. Oh. And of course, we always like to remind people to make sure you continue to renew your subscriptions as well. My Prime subscription, 2 days is my next anniversary. So 2 days I can renew it. You should have that little purple box in the top right corner to subscribe to the channel. And if you have that Twitch, if you have the Amazon Prime, then you get your 1 month, your one free Twitch subscription per month. Just have to link your accounts up, and you're all good there. In terms of board state right now, Watch Your Step has more cards remaining, but Endor Ops is certainly doing a bit more damage. That doesn't always mean anything, though, as we see, a useless gesture here. There's 2 control tunnel vision stacked on it, so 2 of these drains have been canceled. We've got Gornal renewing the subscription. Huge renewing the subscription. Awesome, guys. Thank you. Woohoo! There's another one. Let me turn my volume up a little bit because I feel like my audio's a little low. But that's how you do it, just like those guys. And then you make Jabba show up, and he goes, oh, 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 Thank you. Not quite. It's a bad Jabba impression. I can do a slip. I used to do a better Salacious Crumb impression, but then my voice deepened. So you've got Vader here doing 3 because this is a drain plus 1 site. You've got these guys doing 2 at the system because that's what they always do at Endor. And then this system here with Ominous Rumors would add 2. That would be a drain of 3 over here as well. But as expected, light side is going to just keep shuffling ships around and stay in front of this. So you'll have a drain of 2 and a drain of 3, which ultimatum is out, reducing to a 2. So they're doing 2 and 2 a turn. And over here you've got Luke doing 2 to 1 at space. So it's 4 to 3 is kind of what you're looking at in this situation. 13, 14, 19 cards left for dark side. 19, 22 cards left for light side, plus the ability to play a few interrupts from the lost pile. There's an extra card stacked here on evac, and a Walkling retrieval still available. So a few things. Do have to be a little bit careful. How he moves his stuff around with this Black Sun Fleet Admiral's Order, because during your control phase, one of your independent starships may make a regular move. Independent starship would be Boba Fett and Slave 1 in this case. So during control phase, he drains and then moves. Or in this case, if he had moved everybody over from Tatooine to chase this guy, then Slave 1 could move to Tatooine and then force drain. Still can move over in battle. That is certainly an option. This thing is immune to less than 5 because the old school Falcon says Han, Chewie, or Lando. So you got Lando piloting. So it's immune to 5. You got 2 Battle Destiny there. Pretty good forfeit between both pilots. Wedge is usually the good one. Wedge forfeits for 8 with +2 from the objective. And if you had Insurrection, Aim High, or something like that, Wedge would also get that bonus. And sometimes you can see Wedge forfeit for 9 or 10, depending on the deck, the build. Yeah, I knew it wasn't my Java impressions are not very good these days. I'll practice on it. I'll keep working on it for next month. But watch your step. He didn't save any more for. So he's already stacked 3 cards over here. He already has 2 all wings combos grabbed, 2 control tunnel visions, and what's this? I'm moving to attack position. Okay. So this one's going to be close. The trick would be, can either side get the other one off the ground? Because if they had to start paying for drains, that would be pretty brutal. But I don't see light side having much that's going to get rid of Lord Vader. Although he did just set up a 6, so maybe not. He might have something left up his sleeve. Just throw any 2 random jabronis together, get 2 Battle Destiny, and you only get 1 because of the objective, but and draw the 6, and then just hope that it doesn't get modified in any way. I mean, you can pick up a card off evac to stop it from being modified or canceled by something like Close Call or a Dark Time, because they don't be modified or canceled. And then you would get to draw the 6, but he just lost it from the use pile. So there goes that plan. So I don't know what Sean's got in his hand. He's got 4 cards left, but presumably you would think that setting up a Destiny 6 interrupt would be a great way to kill Vader if he had any characters left who could kill Vader. Could also potentially see him docking bay transiting Luke over and then slowly start the shuffle process if he was worried about being behind and things like that. But then you have to start worrying about Tarkin's orders canceling the drain. So as we talked about earlier, he does move the Slave 1 over to Tatooine and adds Dengar and Punishing 1. So now he'll get a second Battle Destiny, unless he picks up a card with the last card off of Evac here. And then Dengar cancels opponent's immunity to attrition and adds 1 to the total battle destiny for each starship present. So if he's even got anything remotely decent in there, he could force him to pick up this card to try and protect the ship. I think he's going to have to, even though he's not really going to want to. Yep, he's got to pick up that last card. Kipple had a Palpatine set up, so he draws a 6. That'll get rid of one of the 2 pilots. Light side draws a 6. Okay, that's pretty good. And then that 6 will now go to the bottom. So they could have had 2 6s put together. Not that they'll necessarily ever get to play them anywhere, again, because of that restriction with the 1 destiny there. But the 6 is huge because that is more than Dengar covers. So Boba Fett's got to go, which leaves Dengar kind of by himself. Not really, though. Dengar will just move away back to Endor. Or Mara will move back over, which is probably the more likely. But it does take a key ship away, and it does kind of limit his options with Black Sun Fleet. So we'll keep an eye on this game here for a few minutes. Then we'll pop over, see what else is going on in the lobby. We'll talk about some wrapping up May in the OCS. Look ahead to what's on the calendar for June with online weekend. And then the North American Continentals, the European Championships coming up at the end of the summer. And then I've got a game review sent to me by between two quality players that features a deck that I don't think I've ever featured on this show before, which I'm pretty excited about. There's a biker scout for him to retrieve. Ooh. Yep, he does move Mara over. He had Elsic. Interesting. Elsic is the one who's basically like a Gick, I believe, when he's with. Forfeited at same site as other biker scouts, satisfies all remaining attrition and battle damage against you. That's even if he's hit and forfeit 0, he still covers everything. He's a pretty handy guy, but you gotta have him with other biker scouts for his text to be beneficial. But there's certainly a case to be made for playing someone like Sergeant Barrick, who we've seen in ROPS and entanglements, who's when he's with another biker scout, subtracts from their attrition and total power. We'll get a nice little revert here. Let him draw one more card. He has yet to move that U-3PO, though. I guess he's content with Luke being at the smaller site. I guess Sean always has enough force in the move phase that I guess if he moved U-3PO over, he would just then move Luke to the cantina. So he's keeping him at a smaller drain because resistance is not out for Darkseid, so he needs Luke to not be in the cantina. Yeah. Now a lot of regionals. There's a whole bunch of regionals this summer. We'll show everybody where to find the list, so you can find the tournament in your area. So you can make sure to show up and participate in your live events. I know we just had California States last weekend, 2 weekends ago, and maybe last week. That was 2 weekends ago. Yeah, and last weekend was the Minnesota's Rosemount Championship, which is all the kids who have gone through Walseth's program are eligible to play in. They had four first-year players in that event, which was great to see him continue to, continue to have new players year after year. They had 14 players in total. Uh, Not much of a surprise, the two finalists in that tournament were Mishki and Charlie, but those are the guys who started in the program pretty early on, and the next generation of kids will certainly move up, hopefully, and challenge them for those spots. Sam and Corey have been really nipping at their heels the last couple of months, so shout out to the Minnesota community who will be hosting North American Continentals this year, this August. So I'm sure we'll be seeing lots of those kids, young adults, young men, and ladies in attendance at that tournament. Well, Mishki's like what, like 20, 22? Can he even drink yet? So uh, I'm not even. I think he might have just turned be eligible to legally go out and drink in public. So he's been around for 4 or 5 years now. And we have another new. Hey, Sater, thank you for renewing your subscription. Charlie's like 30 something. Well, Charlie looks like he's 50, so um, no, I'm just kidding. That's just because of the beard. So, Grims, to answer your question, the easiest way to play online is to go to the GEMP website, gemp.starwars.org, and this is where you can learn how to play online for free. If you still have your physical cards from back in the day, there are live tournaments, and we'll show you where the Players Committee's website is and things like that, and you can find all the tournaments. We also do a little bit of promoting over on the old Facebook page from time to time, but yeah, plenty of stuff going on there. All right, so there you go. He did have Obi left in his hand, so that tracked six should come in handy here. Should be good enough to clear Vader out, but he did have to. Well, he had to pick up his last card off evac, but the card it was Rescue in the Clouds. So unless he played it, which he did, if he had kept Rescue in the Clouds, then he could guarantee that he wouldn't have to worry about losing or a close call being played and Vader living. He's going to exchange his third Dark Lighter spin and a moving to attack position from his Lost pile to get Wedge back. He's going to redeploy Wedge, this time on the Pulsar skate, where he rightfully belongs. And I'm going to guess we're going to see. Well, he's going to battle there first and try and clear Vader. That's pretty important. It is going to cost him a little bit, though. Vader's very likely to hit Obi because those cards at the top of his deck should be some high destinies. And whether or not Sean has a blaster deflection up his sleeve, he does not. So, yep. We saw Sean, Brad Kipple draw pretty high in the previous turn during the battles, so. And at this point in time, too, you got to believe that most of his low destiny characters and things like that have already hit the table. And he just has sort of a pile of good destiny cards left. But Sean does have a 6 setup, so as long as Brad doesn't have a close call, this is going to work out the way he needs it to. and he lost a rescue in the clouds. So if he does have a close call, he does have 4 force left. He could play it if necessary. That would be the problem. That's the card he can't do anything about. A Dark Time. So, as we speculated earlier, oh, now he's going to have to play Heading. All right, so Heading is still in there. He can add 1 back, spend the 4 force on that. But now he can't move. He can move away. Doesn't really help him much. He could land. Also doesn't help too much. But he does accomplish a number of goals by getting rid of Vader here. So it's definitely worth paying the Force to do. Let me just make that clear. Absolutely 100%. Pay the Force, play the Interrupt from the Lost Pile, and go from there. He can't move over anymore, but he can move the Falcon away, which is fine because you move from Tatooine for -1. Or he can land at the docking bay, which is always free. Thank you for now following us, Mr. Grims. Yes, when you set up your account on GEMP, you do have access to every card currently available. There's a whole thing in there about getting packs and getting cards for your personal collection. They had intended for there to be a specialty format when it was first created where, in addition to being able to play with all the cards whenever you wanted to, there'd be like special tournaments where you could only play with the cards that you had, kind of like we used to do back in the day. But they never really implemented the programming for all that, and it never really took off. So the only thing to do with personal collections is accumulate foil cards, which you can substitute into your decks just to make your cards look, shinier. Some people like them, some people don't. But yeah, you sign up your account, you create it, and you can jump right in and play with all the constructed cards. And there's a wide variety of different formats that people play. There's also sealed deck leagues and things like that, which you can join as well. You just can't join your first week because you don't have any gold yet, because you don't get gold when you create a new account. You get gold every Monday as your weekly allowance. That is to prevent people from what they used to do, which was they would just create 50 accounts, keep signing up for all the sealed deck tournaments, trying to get the best drafts, and then, you'd have 300 people in a tournament, but it's really only like 6 guys. They just kept making a ridiculous amount of fake accounts just to keep drafting and whatnot. I suppose you still could do that and just keep all your 50 accounts active, and then they'll get their 5 gold allowance each week. But it's a lot more tedious and time consuming, and if that's really what you want to do, have at it. Now Kipple's got to pay to drain. That was the crucial part of killing Vader, getting him off the ground, is he has to pay to drain. The downside of doing all that and spending all the force, he moved the Falcon away, but he didn't have any force to move Luke. So now U-3PO is in front here, blocking the ground drain. So still worth doing, and it was still a good move by Sean to clear Vader out. But now he does have some issues. What's the docking bay transit on the dark side? Costs 2, huh? Interesting. Docking bay transit undercover spies. It's your character, so I believe you use your own game text if you want to move him like that. I think that's how that works. Yes, Chris Kelly. Foils are good. Making your deck with as many foil cards as possible, both in real life and on GEMP, is the goal of many a player out there. Yeah, sealed is a good way to get your feet wet. Just kind of figure out the mechanics and things like that without really getting into too deep of a card pool. Most people usually remember the basic mechanics of the game, which is kind of little bits, little nuances to things. Or oh, I remember that stupid Talon Roll card. That card sucked. So depending on which, there's a couple different sealed leagues. You've got the Premier New Hope League. There's a Jabba's Palace sealed, and then there's a Death Star 2 sealed. Are the three they rotate? Like it's like 2 weeks of one and then 2 weeks of the next one. They just go in a circle. It's cyclical. So awesome, glad to have you, and welcome back. Melas, still just ability 4, probably going to get hit by Kylo. Then they would cause a forced loss. But Sean has fallen behind in this game. It's now 15-10. Firepower is out, so that dodge is not really going to be of any use. He went a little too far. Wanted to battle. Melas does have to clear Kylo. He's got to keep him paying to drain. And both these guys not worried about time at all. They've got 20 plus minutes left on their timers. We'll pop in the lobby real quick. Looks like there's another game starting here. Hutch! Oh. So Grady popped in, got the information that he wanted, and was like, I'm going to go play a game. We'll hop into that one in a few minutes and tease him about his poor play against Ross. And it looks like there's a couple other people waiting. See, right now it's the Premier A New Hope Sealed League, using only cards from the Premier set, Premier packs, A New Hope packs, and the official tournament sealed deck. And I think the Jedi pack cards might also be included in that, but I don't remember. I haven't played sealed in a little while. So Melas is going to battle. Melas is going to get hit. Wow. He's going to pay for the dodge and subtract 3 from each, which cost him 5 force, his remaining 5. He misses, which is great, because that'll stop him from should stop him from taking any overflow, and also causes Kipple to have to lose a card. But he's still going to be behind in the damage output here. As he's only draining for 2 a turn and getting hit for 4 a turn back. Kipple has enough force that he can continue affording to pay to drain for 1 or 2 more turns to squeak out this win. So Sean really needed to have force available to move some of these ships. Not all of them, just 1 or 2 of them, or 2 of them really, over to here to Tatooine to block this drain. Because right now Kibble can just activate, pay 6, drain for 4, and say go. Retrieve a guy if he's got any biker scouts left, if he just keeps losing and whatnot. So now he's doing 4 damage a turn to his opponent doing 2. Because this is only -1 if Vader's on table. And Vader did. Yep, activated all. Pay to drain, pay to drain. If he's got 2 cards left in hand, if either of those is a character, he just throws them right down to the site as well. Interesting. He skipped draining to deploy Blizzard 4. I would not have done that. I would not recommend doing that. You got 12 force. Blizzard 4 costs 5. You need 1 for upkeep on him. That's 6. Spend your other 6 force and drain for 4. And just say go. Your opponent has no hand. You don't need to do anything else. There's no reason to move this stuff over. There's no reason to move anything around. Force your opponent to come to you. You have more cards left than he does, and you're doing more damage per turn than he is. This is a bad play by Kipple. So for those of you watching at home, I talk about this a lot in my show, where I say, if you're ahead, it's up to your opponent to change the status quo, to do something to change the outcome of the game, the pace of the game. You've got more cards left, and you're doing more damage per turn than your opponent. There's no reason to really force any interactions or do anything else. The only way that he can lose is if he gets his ass kicked in space. It's unlikely to happen with what he's got here, but hey, you never know. He's got a whole loss pile here that could be full of some tricks and shenanigans. Do I think Kipple's still going to win this game? Yes, I do. I think he is still going to end up winning. But he puts a little, he adds a little extra layer of risk to that win. Maybe he's just having a little fun because he's bored or whatnot. But yeah, he really had no reason to do any of the things that he did this turn. Activate 12, pay 6 to drain, deploy Blizzard 4, say go. That's your turn. That's your move. Your opponent has no cards in hand. They can't come interact with Blizzard 4. They have to then move their ships around. He's going to drain you for 2. Big deal. You're at 14, and he's at 10. He'd be at 6. It'd be 14 to 6, and he's going to drain you for 2. And you're worried about moving in front of them to block that? No. Sean will retrieve Melas. At least give himself the potential to get a character back that can do something. Kipple also did not save any force, so now Luke will be able to move to the Cantina away from U3PO. It's probably going to be a little too late on that one, but he will get to move away from him. He could Docking Bay Transit Luke over as well. Start moving Luke in front of Blizzard 4, but again, I don't think he's going to get there. Hey, Queso, thank you for renewing your subscription and hitting your 7 months now. Battling in space, yeah, you kind of wonder why not there. I guess he's trying to preserve the last few ships and things that he has. I mean, you've got Wedge who forfeits for a bunch. who's with Mirax, who so adds 1 to the total battle destiny. Maybe this was a terrible card. I don't know. Could be like, probably could be like a 5 or something like that. Oh, he's got a dark time. So he can activate 1 and then move you 3PO over. That's clever. But yeah, he had him outpowered here 20 to 10. Obviously, he's got no immunity. They're getting 2 destiny to your 1. He's adding several to the total. So that maybe certainly is a concern because you're looking at Dengar's adding 3, Fell's adding 1, so that's +4, and he draws 2 destiny. So he could easily end up clearing a guy and a ship. Whereas, what's the best case scenario for light side there? They clear Dengar because he's not. He has no. Well, he's this one's had that character board. So yeah. So he ends up killing Dengar, which doesn't really get him anywhere. He loses a whole ship or something like that. So I can understand not necessarily wanting to battle here. It doesn't really get you anywhere. He does have a spin in the lost pile, but it's going to end up getting stacked over here on a useless gesture. It doesn't go on allegations, I believe, right? I don't know. There was just a whole thread about that with competing grabbers as to where it goes. I don't think it comes down to whose turn it is, right? So I guess light side would pick that it goes here instead. I don't know. But yeah, he does have the spin in the lost pile. The question is too is also, is GEMP programmed to know how to handle competing grabbers? Because GEMP's first reaction may be to just go, oh, you played it from the lost pile, you must stack it here, so therefore it goes on a useless gesture. I don't know if how it's coded. It might be a good thing to test and try out to know whether or not if it would even know which grabber to put it on. If it would recognize that as competing actions, or if it would just be like, it came from lost pile, it goes on a useless gesture. In which case, then it may not have even given him the option to use the objective to play it, because he would know that it would cost 6 to do. It's an interesting question. Certainly something to have to check and see to find out how GEMP would handle that. And I'm sure they'll be updating that now the ruling just came out. If they can figure out how to program it to do that. They just did update, do the errata to 2 cards that they still have to figure out how to fix the images for. We'll cover that a little bit as well, and my thoughts and your thoughts. There's already been 3 pages or 4 pages of commentary on those, so we won't get into too much about it, but we'll talk about the errata. Space battle at Endor. Draws a 4, which becomes a 5 from Dengar. That'll clear one of the pilots. That'll get rid of Theron Net. Light side draws a measly 3, which Wedge does not add to because he's alone. So probably just get rid of Thrawn. Oh, he's going to get rid of Dengar. And with 7 battle damage and neither pilot doing anything by themselves, getting rid of Wedge is the right play here by Sean. Why take extra cards? Because it's not like Wedge is going to do anything extra for you. You're still in a position where you still need 2 guys to really do anything. Yeah. Hi, Sean. Yes, you are about to lose. You should have lost 2 turns ago, but Brad was nice and didn't force drain you the turn he deployed Blizzard for. Yeah, Endor Ops, when it flips, is a bit troubling for a deck like Watch Your Step, because Watch Your Step, most of its advantage is through its multiple destiny draws. And having the objective flipped is a bit problematic. You don't have a way, usually in most Watcher Steps, to get into the bunker, which is how you would have to, because if you occupy the site, or if you control the site, you put this card back in the deck. Um, K2SO is the only spy that Watcher Step can play because he's a droid, so you can deploy him in like a guy or two. But I don't know that a lot of Watcher Step decks are playing him right now. They should be, but it looks like this one is just academic at this point. Kipple still has 14 minutes left, so unless he wants to run out of time, he should be okay here. It looks like Sean's just going to concede and scoop the game. Okay, well, thanks to both these guys for playing and giving us an opportunity to pop in and check it out. Uh, we'll close this out now. Get back to the old GEMP lobby. I do want to pop over to the Players Committee forums real quick and talk about some other stuff. So, for anybody new, StarWarsCCG.org is where you can find the Players Committee website. Once you create an account, you usually come out to the home page. Looks like this, and then you just go to this community section and you go to forum, and then you see some stuff on there. There's also some other great stuff in here. There's a lot of articles. There's some new player stuff. There's some information here about online play. There's a whole section here for new players, which just sort of gives you a little update about like, hey, introduction, how to find out things about the game, how to register to get on the boards, different places where you can find stuff, article series and things like that. A few guys have written different articles over the years about how the shields work and all kinds of stuff, that kind of stuff there. You got your rules, you've got some tournament deck lists, so if you're looking for deck lists to copy to build your first decks, I highly recommend copying lists. Just go to standard deck lists, find recent events from 2019, and just start going through and seeing like, oh, these are the guys who won. Don't go with day two lists. Day two lists are always warped because you know who your opponents are going to be. So then you add specific cards for them against those people and what you think they're likely to play and how that's supposed to work out. So go with day one lists and just look at the top 10 guys or so and just kind of find decks in here that you like. Yeah, it does. Things do get a little buried in WordPress with the articles because I believe the yeah the as each list gets posted, it's kind of its own little article, so everything all gets buried, and then it's hard to find. You go, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. If you go all the way further back, hey, look, New and returning players article. That's where that word NARP comes from. New and returning players. Because I made it up in 2014 when I had an article series that started all this fun stuff. Actually, it was probably 2013 I started that series. Um, that's where that acronym comes from. It's all me. I'm taking credit for it. I don't care. I'm taking credit for it. Um, so yes, there's all kinds of information and things here, and then you can go to the forums. There's also the store. You can buy cards from us, the Players Committee. We have our own store. Occasionally things are out of stock because, well, I do a lot of other things and I don't have time always to update that. So if there's specific stuff you're looking for, you can always send us an email, store at starwarsccg.org. Same thing if you want to buy commons and uncommons. We'll see what we have available. But there's plenty of places to buy different stuff and to register for tournaments, sorted by set, foils, all that kind of stuff available there. Always got to promote the store whenever I can. So that's there. We go to the forums. Most of us just go right to the forums. Most of us bypass the homepage these days. So, like we mentioned, online championship series is ongoing. Congratulations to the May qualifiers. It was Zlorfik, aka Bastion Winklehouse, our current world champion, and Tom, aka the GEMP Maniac. I know he says GEMP Warrior, but he's the GEMP Maniac. All the details about that can be found here. June registration is now open if you're on the month-to-month plan. Cumulative standings have been updated as well. So, and here you can find the link to Tom's page. Tom has already played 3 or 4 of his games this month and has been streaming those. He streams all his games on Twitch and is really hoping to continue to do that for the rest of the time. Live events. Well, we've got the European Championships. You've got North American Continentals. We've been talking about those for a few weeks now. Online Play Weekend is also coming up. We talked about that a little bit last week. You can find all the details about that here. All you have to do is play a game online on either Holotable or GEMP. I highly recommend playing it on GEMP because that is just the resource of the future and where we're at. But if you really like Holotable, you can still use that. That's fine. Who would want to contact about hosting a live event for Star Wars CCG? Where are you located, Kappa Cup? So this is all the stuff about Online Play Weekend. These are the previous foils that have been given out the last 2 years. It was Phasma and Cody last year, Grievous and Isla 2 years ago. Here's everything you have to do to submit that when it comes up here in 3 weeks. You are in the Hershey, Pennsylvania area. Well, the easiest way would be to find a store and that is willing to, or a venue that is willing to host you. And if you have any players in your area, but there is this little thing right here called in the tournament section where you can post your event and just say, hey, I'm running a tournament in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It'll be on, Saturday, whatever the date is. It'll be 4 games. Just post the details. You don't have to do anything official to register and sanction events anymore. There's no rating system anymore. So you can post your information here and let people know about it. Much like these guys have. Here's this Colorado event testing. Now had a regional. Regional and states events do have to get registered. But local events don't. People do post here things just to let everybody know. Casual play testing in Atlanta, casual meetup in Georgia, those kinds of things. Happy Halloween tournament in Minnesota are all right there. There is this other section as well of league championships. There are a number of established leagues, including a New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania league. Most of these events here are run out of northern New Jersey because most of the remaining players in this area are in central New Jersey, Philadelphia area, or southern New York. So that's where that kind of stuff happens to take place. But I mean, there are other options for running events around the country. Some of these leagues are not as active anymore. I think the Ohio League hasn't run an event in a few years. Neither has the Ontario League or the Illinois League. Brian Fred and them keep talking about starting that league back up, but don't actually ever do it. Same thing with the Utah League. But Seattle League is very active. SoCal League is fairly active. Bespin, which is Minnesota, is very active. This Massachusetts League was pretty active, although with Grady moving, I don't think. I don't know how active this will stay. Hopefully, people will continue to pick up the slack with him no longer being there. This Virginia League is pretty busy. They do monthly events, so there's plenty of stuff in and around lots of different areas in America. And then there's a separate forum if you are in Europe. There is a European Players Forum, which oh there it is, it's down here, which you can go to find out about all the kinds of events happening in Europe. Excuse me. And this is another feature very handy for new players as well. The player locator, where you can find all kinds of players. Um, if you're happening to be returning in the game and you're looking for people in your area, you can find people Las Vegas, Nevada, Nashville, Milwaukee. You just go to this little player locator here, and you can get some information about people in all the different states, and then you can privately message them and be like, hey, does your group ever meet up and play? I would like to join you guys. So all kinds of fun stuff here, all kinds of ways to stay connected to the community and what's going on. I did promise we would talk about the errata. Let's do that. So, two little changes this week, which went into effect Sunday morning, right after Chris Kelly finished playing all his map games with his map deck on Saturday. When was that last updated? It's players are added on a regular basis as they join the list and say, "Hey, I'm in Nevada, sign me up." Um, Players are never removed from it, I don't think. So it's not like it. So there may be some guys who are inactive who haven't played in a while, but it doesn't mean they don't still have their cards and might not want to dust them off. If some people actually were interested in playing, maybe that's why they went inactive, is because you know the only other guy out there who played moved away. So now you're there. Now you can be their new best friend, and you guys can play together. Errata. General Hux got a minor errata to him. Once per game, may upload a first order Stormtrooper. The or strategic reserves part was taken away. That's not a big deal. It's good in the way that it balances the game a little bit and doesn't make it so automatic, which is nice. But you do get several use pile searches from first order decks already. The ones that it kind of hurts are the ones that weren't playing. If you're doing something off of first order, with just, I don't know why you'd include Hux, but if you're just like, I just need some random generals, and you were relying on him to get your strategic reserves, I don't know. That probably wouldn't be a very good deck to begin with, so you wouldn't be too worried about how that would work. But not getting strategic reserves anymore, having it be guaranteed, having them have to use a use pile search or some other way of finding it, effect pullers, whatever, force push, point man. Yeah, there's a number of ways, Tarkin's bounty, whatever, that they can go through and search out the card they want. So having Hux not pull that, that's a good change. I like it very much. Other little change, the defensive shield for light side your ship, which canceled a dangerous time and did all this other stuff about Sabak. Got a minor revision. Tartag, thank you for resubscribing for your second month. Got a minor change here, and also now cancels Imperial Supply. It's a good change. I like that change. Imperial Supply has always been one of those cards that has never been used for a good purpose. There's never been like a deck that, just needed an Imperial Supply or two to get up 2 speed, so that way it could be like a tier 2 or a tier 3 kind of deck. It's always been one of those things where it takes a deck that's like tier 1.5 and pushes it so far ahead of the curve that it's just not not at all balanced. You see it in things map with the troopers throwing guys all over the place and getting extra activation. Entanglements or other decks. We used to see it in Dark Deal in like speed deal decks, where you'd run 4 or 5 Imperial supplies and a bunch of guys who all deploy for 0 or 1. And first turn it'd be like just bam, here's 5 sites with 5 different guys at it and ready to go. And it's a very degenerate strategy. So Imperial Supply going away. I mean, some people, 2 or 3 people seem to like it and think that it was a good card and they really like playing with the card. A few people also seem to be like, well, I'd rather have, just take it away from the deck that's abusing it now, and, you know, we won't have to worry about it again until it pops up again in something else somewhere down the road. I'm always a fan of, if the card's a problem, just get rid of the damn card. Decipher made these cards 20 years ago, 25 years ago. They didn't do a lot of play testing, back in the day too. Their cards certainly weren't very balanced all the time. How many pages of errata to decipher cards do we have that we're not really trying to do anymore? So putting it on a shield and canceling it and getting rid of it, I think is a good solution, and I'm happy with it. That's just my opinion. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you agree with me, design advocate Chris Kelly. Now, Chris, I didn't mean to call you out, but I did call you out. Your games that you've played in the OCS so far, you used map. Did you play the Imperial Supply version on Saturday before you eroded it? He's not going to answer now. All right, I'll stop picking on you. You're right, Nutritious. It's on a shield, which means your opponent still has to pull the shield. So you can get the first one through and get your 4 force activation if that's the route you want to go. Then they can play the shield to stop the rest of them. Um, that's up to them. Maybe they get to a point, maybe now they can't stop something else because they had to play that extra shield. So, um, there's still a little strategy involved here. It's not completely gone. It's not like it was just like eroded into existence, out of existence or banned altogether. It's put on a shield. So there's a little bit of it's not dead. It's not completely dead. It's mostly dead, but not completely dead. So that's where we're at with that. OCS is off and running for June. We've already had a handful of games being played. Chris Kelly is sitting here in second right now with 4-0. He's the highest of the undefeated players. Some of these other guys are like 3-2, 2-1, 2-0, that kind of stuff. So Batmouse off to a good start at 2-0. I know he's come close the last couple of months with some 9-3s and 10-2s. So off to another good start. Hoping he can qualify this month. The errata's GEMP implementation is beyond my purview. I hide from nothing. I can't tell. Okay. So you did play the Imperial Supply version of map on Saturday when you were playing your map games. That's what you're saying. Okay. But yeah, you didn't play all his Dark Side games, right? You still have a couple of them left. So, all right. I do want to get to this featured game here. We're running a little longer than usual, but I've been trying to get to this one for a little while now. Haven't quite had the time, but like I said, it features a deck I'm almost positive I've never included in a stream before. Dun, 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 dun. Rescue the princess. What? So, we have a game here between Gavin, who provided the link, playing Rescue the Princess, taking on MatthewHT. I'm assuming that this is Matthew Harrison Trainer. We haven't seen at a live event in a while because he's been in Australia, New Zealand, something or other for the last year or so. He's working on his PhD or some shit. Um, academic important stuff instead of playing Star Wars with the rest of us. Um, but he was online and played a game against Gavin, who was playing Rescue the Princess. 12 card hand start, Rescue the Princess. And for those of you unfamiliar with Rescue the Princess, which should be most of you, let's go through it real quick. So, you deploy the detention block corridor. You start with a low ability Leia in prison there and a couple of docking bays and war rooms. Spies and pretty much anything that could easily get Leia out can't deploy to the Death Star, so you got to deploy and then move there or play some other weird combinations of stuff. Cards that release captives are immune to sense and alter. You may not play neighbor and leads. You can play Odin Nestlor though, which is great because Odin moves you from any location to a battleground, so you can move right from the detention block corridor right to the docking bay, and then have Leia walk into the war room, which is what's required for you to flip. Flip if you move Leia to Yavin 4 war room. Place out of play if Leia is lost from table. Hang on one second. Now, why is this objective played? Because the flip side of this objective is the most broken flip side I think I've ever seen on anything, even through all of the bad virtual cards that have been created over the last 20 years that have been errataed or redone or redoed or reduxed or reset. I still think the 7-sided Rescue the Princess is the craziest thing that's ever been on an objective in terms of power and ability. What's on the backside, you say? While this side up, opponent to initiate a force drain, they have to use +1 force. Okay, that's not too big a deal. During battle, opponents' unique characters, vehicles, and starships lost from table are placed out of play. Well, that kind of sucks. Leia adds a battle destiny, further making things go out of play. Attrition against opponents is +2. That's just everywhere. And Imperials, Dark Jedi, and Imperial starships lose all immunity to attrition. So, to recap, all the good stuff, Imperials, Dark Jedi, and Imperial starships, lose all their immunity to attrition. When they're lost from the table, they go out of play, so they can never be redeployed again. And attrition against opponents is +2, which makes it easier to make them have to lose more things. Losing 2 to 3 cards a turn, even though their immunity is canceled. Or possibly maybe some aliens or First Order characters or Senate stuff or whatever. These guys would still have immunity, but now it's +2, so they're easier to get rid of. And if you happen to be battling against Leia, she adds a battle destiny. And you have to pay more to drain. So that does slow you down a little bit, but not as big a deal. Flip if Leia is captured, place out of play if Leia is lost from table. However, that was fixed on prisoner blah 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 blah. Because she adds 2 to your force drains here. Well, hey. Remainder of game, your objective cannot be placed out of play, and if Leia's not on table, you flip back. So your objective never goes out of play anymore by starting her. If she dies, you just flip back to the 0 side. If you're still on the 0 side, you stay on the 0 side. But then you just deploy another Leia and then just move back over and flip it again. This Leia also has a deploy cost of 0. So if you have a Bacta tank, you slap a Bacta tank down and you just forfeit Leia to the tank and then take her back out for free and repeat the whole process and pretty much stay on the 7 side. Getting her out of the prison is what takes a little bit of work and some card slots. There's a number of ways to do it. There's a couple of handy interrupts. 8D8 is a good one, but again, you can't deploy them. You gotta deploy over here and then move over. They're vulnerable to things like trample and force lightning as they're trying to get her out. All kinds of interesting stuff like that. There's a new guy who can deploy. Challenge accepted, and that's the most broken flip side you've ever seen. Uh, be my guest, Chris. I know you guys really been pushing, this episode 7, 8, 9 stuff. Maybe you can find something in there to make a new objective around. Make a Sith training objective, which people have been asking about for 20 years, and let's make that broken. Or make the flip side of Mind What You Have Learned V and make that even more broken. Um, but yeah, I don't think we'll ever see anything as powerful as the flip side of that 7 side of that objective. The front side basically does nothing, and you have a terrible starting activation. You give your opponent 3 icons, while only getting a couple for yourself. So can deploy to Death Star and release. I'll have to look that guy up because I forget what he does. Maybe that's what who Gavin is using, and we'll get a look. So he gets 12 cards here. Nope, he's running the 8d8 on the edge version. So I believe on the edge can target captives. So a lot of sometimes people do that where they just on the edge her, pick a number, guess wrong to kill her, and then redeploy her and move over. That's one way to do it. 8d8 is the other good way. Once during a turn, with an imprisoned captive, draw destiny. If it's greater than 3, you release the captive. The Echo-based Garrison card pulls 8d8, so that's a way as well to get him out. You can split multiple copies because he's Destiny 5, so that's not bad either. We see some lift tubes. That's a good way to move between the sites because lift tubes deploy only to interior mobile sites, and they can move as a react or whatnot. So typically what you'll do is you will deploy 8d8 to the docking bay, deploy the lift tube to this docking bay because it can only go to mobile and it can only go to interior, which docking bays are. You docking bay transit 8d8 over, he gets in the lift tube, then you move the lift tube over here, then he gets out. Then on your turn, you free Leia, you put her in the lift tube, you move this over here, and then docking bay transit to get back to Yavin, where, maybe you have some other way or something else going on. Or, I've seen people do creature vehicles too. You docking bay, you move over here, put on a Yopi, and then move the Yopi or speeders or all kinds of other stuff. So there certainly are interesting ways to get her out. Let's see what Gavin does here. Playing against what looks like a standard Ral Ops build, so putting some guys out of play will certainly come in handy for Ral Ops, making them all lose immunity, making all those guys go out of play, so that way they can't keep doing their stupid exchanging, looping the same guys around over and over again, which I friggin' hate, and I've talked about for a month now, so I won't harp on that any longer. But so Raltier is going to do their standard thing. They'll get their sights out. They'll probably pull Mustafar and then get Vader's Castle for extra activation. Yep. Oh, Castle wasn't there. I guess I'll have to draw for it. Or maybe it was in the force that he used to pull the system. That's always the worst, when it's in the 2 force that you spent. Alright, so we get some extra activation. We'll probably get an 8d8. We'll probably get a 3PO. Yep, 8d8 to the docking bay. We'll get the lift tube. Yeah, so this is a pretty straightforward way to get her out. Also happens to work out really well because these cards are very high destiny in terms of 8d8 being a 5. The lift tubes are 6s. So playing a couple extra copies of them to get them into your hand early doesn't end up hurting you later because you just draw them for destiny. And who doesn't like drawing 5s and 6s for destiny? As long as you're not trying to sense something, you're fine. Docking bay transit. Pop on into the lift tube. Move over. Get out. Oh, wait, what? Well, it's once during each of your turns. There you go. Don't even have to get out. You're just going to do it right then. He's going to go for the release on the edge and kill her. So he released her. She's freed. Oh, that's the other thing. It's on the site here. Whenever you release a captive here, retrieve one force. 4 if it's Leia. So if you had lost cards already, by the time you get Leia out, you might be able to retrieve 4 of them. He did get the Hujix. So I guess he's going to rely on the fact that if Leia gets beat down here, he could just Hujix it and get out of things. Didn't save any force though, so if his opponent happened to have a first strike in their deck, Ralops isn't necessarily known for playing that, but hey, you never know. First strike would be bad. Here comes the Grand Inquisitor, who will kill Leia and then docking bay transit to Raltir. See if he can draw high enough to cause any additional damage. No. But he did start domination, so he's going to get to redraw and take that Vader into hand. Nope, Leia still forfeits her plenty, so no harm, no foul there. And prisoner Leia will just die, which just kind of speeds things up. Now, note to self, or to all of you, to flip the objective, Leia has to move to the Yavin 4 War Room, so you can't just deploy her here and flip, you have to deploy her and walk her over. You can't play neighbor and leads either, which would also let you do it during like the deploy phase or something. You deploy her here and then neighbor her over, but that is not allowed. Surprise Assault. That's another brutal card, especially when you have thin your deck out and just get a whole bunch of 5s and 6s left. If you can kill off some of their good characters when they have to spread out later with just whatever random weenies they happen to have left, then you can punish them with the Surprise Assault and draw those lift tubes and 8d8s for Destiny for that. Alright, so Leia has moved and the objective has been flipped. And now you don't have to worry so much about leaving Leia alone because this Leia draws a Battle Destiny. She adds one with the objective. And then he's got some, there's the Bacta tank, he's got the Mantelian Savrip. How did we get into this mess? That's always a fun card. It's one of those cards, too, where you're just like, this card is never used for anything good. How did we get into this mess? If one of your droids is at Dune C, not so often. Or where there is a Scomp link, well, that's pretty often. Use a force, discard your entire hand to your used pile, draw the same number of cards from your reserve deck. Draw one extra if droid that you targeted was C-3PO or R2-D2. So basically you draw the same number of cards. So if Gavin were to want to play this right now, he would take his whole hand, stick it in his used pile, and draw 16 new cards off the top of his reserve deck. It's a great way when you're playing locations that you don't have pullers for to accelerate through them and get them out faster. Like if you were playing a bunch of, Twix war rooms, you want the Home 1 war room and the Hoth war room and a bunch of other stuff that you don't have pullers for, that would be a good way to do it. You would just draw a bunch of cards, cycle back into your deck, draw a whole new hand, get all your locations out, play another one, and dump them back, and just keep doing that and keep burning through your hand pretty quick until you found everything that you needed to get out of your deck onto the table, and then you just have a whole bunch of other good cards left in a good amount of activation already in play or whatever. I just felt like cheering. It's the other fun thing to do once in a while. All right, so we'll move along here. Now, what spies would Rowlops have? Probably not too many. They're going to go ahead and do their flip thing. Since you can only play Imperials when you're playing the Imperial Domination version, it's really just Arica. And I think some of them would rather have Mara with Lightsaber as opposed to Arica. We're going to get an Emperor Shuttle. He makes him pay 2. By pulling the Goldenrod shield. But now with the objective flipped, he can just go pick off some characters. He does need a barrier canceller. That would be a problem. Having a free Sovrip, that should also help with damage issues. Han, Chewie, and the Falcon. Here comes the barrier. Seems like a good card to grab. Yep. Han, Chewie, and the Falcon is a great utility card in many decks. Doesn't see as much play anymore because of how popular Solo is with the Lost Pile mechanics. But in terms of card efficiency, Han, Chewie, and the Falcon is pretty powerful. Now, I will warn you of the issues with how do we get into this mess on GEMP in terms of time. You do have to click each individual card to put them in order that you want them in your use pile. So if you have a bigger hand with 15 cards or so, it can take a little extra time to put them all in. And then that does help you with tracking later, though, too, if you remember what order you put them in. Because he's only activating 12 right now. He has other activation in here. This would be a good way to get to it, to get a Jedi Council chamber or something. But as you can see, putting 15, 16 cards back one at a time does take a while. Luckily, it doesn't make you draw them one at a time. At least I hope it doesn't. There you go. So he drew them all back, and he got his hand back up. We'll take a look at his new hand now. Draw their fire is pretty huge in this type of deck as well. Keep them from playing certain interrupts. Fallen Portal helps because you're usually occupying docking bays, and you've got a lot of high destinies. Luke's Like My Father, another out of commission to keep putting stuff. The cards you don't get with the objective, out of commission can also help put out of play. It also obviously helps a lot against Hunt Down, canceling Visage damage, because this deck is pretty fragile in the beginning and you can't afford to lose any key cards. So he found his Like My Father, so we can get that out of his hand. He's going to play Rescue to take a look at the top cards and see what else is in there. That's just more of the same stuff. So he takes another mess. He does seem to be a little light in activation. I would have thought he might have, with all these messes and things like that, he might have played one more location. But it looks like he's really just playing just as much high Destiny stuff as possible. It looks like it's very few characters. Yeah, very few characters. A bunch of Lukes, a couple of Landos, a couple of 8D8s. And now he's going to mess his whole hand back again. This is going to take a while. We're going to speed this up. Yeah, put all your cards back. And then he's basically just going to draw right back to most of where the last cards that he put back at the after the first one will be in the middle of his pile, so that'll be what he'll draw to, are those plus the force that he spent deploying Han, Chewie, and the Falcon. All right, there we go. Ah, he does have a Jedi Council chamber. Okay, so it wasn't that force that he must have spent deploying Han, Chewie, and the Falcon. That's just where it ended up in the middle between all the cycles. Okay. And he found it. He found it, Dan. He's got it. Now he can get up to 15, and now he can start doing some damage at multiple sites. For right now, he's got to pay one for each of these drains because of the objective making each one +1. So he's paying one to drain one, pay one to drain one, pay one to drain one. When this ship, if this ship gets destroyed, which it's likely going to be able to move away to, yeah, it'll move over here, and it's just going to keep chasing him around. But between the objective and battle order, these would be, if he cleared him out of space, if he didn't have the barrier, this would be a drain of 4. I'm sorry, he'd be paying 4 to drain for 1. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen almost ever. Get his Jedi Council chamber out. We may see a Bacta tank come out. He's going to rescue again. Take the Qui-Gon. It's just a pile of 5s and 6s at this point, really. And an Obi somewhere. So, Vader has lost his immunity to attrition because of the objective. And with attrition being +2, he's going to get put out of play, which means no more Vaders. And a deck like Ral Ops, that's not as big of a deal because they're only running 1 or 2 copies. They're only running like 1 or 2 copies. There's very few cards that, very few personas that they have duplicated. They're running a wide variety of characters. In a deck like Hunt Down or something like that, having Vader put out of play is pretty brutal. Some decks rely on playing multiple copies of the same personas, Vader, Maul, Emperor, that kind of stuff, and other decks play, one, possibly a second copy of a couple of key guys, but for the most part, they just sort of spread it around. The other fun part is because he lost the battle, he gets to use Mantelian Savrip. After losing any battle, character, starship, and vehicles may be forfeited directly from your hand for forfeit value to reduce attrition or battle damage. So he lost the battle by 5, he just throws a Jedi Luke away to cover 9, and Qui-Gon gets to live. Then he moves Han, Chewie, and the Falcon to Raltier. and flips him back because now he controls 2 locations. And he's going to pay his upkeep on his Falcon. As we mentioned earlier, the other cool thing about putting stuff out of play means Raltier can't use its little text here that it does to exchange a card to get a card back. So they can't just throw, draw Destiny for battle and then be like, I don't need Admiral Ozzel. I would like to get my Darth Vader back. I'll grab the Fallen Portal now. With nothing but a pile of 5s and 6s, that's a very practical card as well. Does Rescue just scoop to ISB? No, I mean, the Savrip and things like that could certainly help you out. Their ships and things aren't quite immune, so you'll end up chewing through it, depending on what else they got. I mean, he's going for a huge beatdown here with everything. I know you're thinking with them all being spies and things like that, that would be a problem. But so he drops the house on him here, 20 power, 2 battle destiny to try and clear Qui-Gon. All he's likely to end up getting, though, are a couple of characters from hand. Davajon is hit and forfeit 0. No need to kick him out of the battle, really. An awesome blind 6 draw. I mean, he did look and see what was in there, but it really didn't look all that impressive. He had a 1 in 5. Well, the redraws a little bit better. A chance of getting that random 6. So 31 here to 6. This might be a Hujix time. But that's going to be a 7, which Colonel Wolf Yularen does forfeit for. Sorry, the Destiny is a 5. He has an attrition total of 7. Davajon, out of play. He'll just lose Qui-Gon. There goes Colonel Wolf Yularen, out of play. And this other thing cool here too, we get to see the running stat tracker, cards that are out of play. So we're up to 4. Yeah, this deck does look kind of fun. It is also one of the most fragile kind of decks. Obviously, there's ways in here and things like that. You're going to mitigate a lot of the bad draw issues, but yeah, you could run into some trouble with some tramples and force lightnings and stuff, and any deck that has spies and could continue killing Leia, something that can alter the Bacta tank, that kind of stuff could all be a little bit troublesome. He didn't look for the lightsabers, though, did he? Maybe he knows where it is. And he's going to move Leia out as well, out to the docking bay. And pay his upkeep there as well. Yeah, could be very strong against a deck like Ralops, deck like Hunt Down. If you can survive the first couple turns and get Leia and everything set up and get yourself flipped, could be very strong against that. Map is going to be one where a few things are going to work. Putting guys out of play is universal. Same thing against Court. Putting guys out of play is universal, but you don't quite cancel all their immunity. Like Snoke loses his immunity against map, but um, if you happen to be playing another ship, but like the finalizer wouldn't. So, but if you're playing like Thrawn Chimera or Mara ship or something like that as a secondary bonus ship, um, that would lose its immunity to attrition. I think map just goes back to playing how it always played. You know, map was doing just fine at tournaments before the Imperial Supply version came along. I think it just goes right back to being that exact deck. Um, you just make one little in-game decision a little differently in terms of how you get strategic reserves out of your deck. Here we go. And map will be just fine. But now we get to see Fallen Portal, which is one of my favorite cards that I don't really get to use as much as I like anymore. Target a creature or up to 2 characters present initiate a battle or attack against you at Backdoor, Rancor Pit, Jabba's Palace, or any docking bay. Draw Destiny. Targets are immediately lost if Destiny +2 greater than total defense value. What a great way to pick off a bunch of scrub characters. Or a key character, because it's +2. So Vader, Maul, those guys are defense value 6. You draw a 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. They die. In this particular case, you've got these 3 weenie guys. You've got Tarkin, Evax, and Min Kun. You target Tarkin and Evax, who have a total combined defense value of 5. You got a whole deck full of mostly 5s and 6s at this point, and you just make them both immediately lost. And then it's Prisoner 2187 against Min Kun, who doesn't do anything by himself. Oh yeah, and they go out of play too. So those guys are out of play. That just leaves Min by himself. Doesn't draw Destiny. Leia does get a Destiny because of the objective. And Min will cover the damage. And he goes out of play too. And even if that had gone through and the Fallen Portal had missed or something like that, Savrip could have just forfeited one of these guys from hand. Now, Cold Feet does cancel Savrip, so that is something to be aware of. And many Darkside decks do run Cold Feet. Matt is going to battle and kind of suicide his Emperor and guys here on the shuttle to get this Falcon off the board. I guess he's counting on the fact that this is probably one of the only ships that Gavin's playing. And if he can get it off the board, then he'll have to pay to drain. Would have been interesting here. As an option, he could have not drawn. I just want to walk through this scenario because it is one there that you do have to consider. So Darkside battles, they're losing the battle 9 to, what's this thing, like power 2, 4, 4? Yeah, so they're down in power. They draw their 8 for Battle Destiny, so they're up to 12. So they outpower you 12 to 9. You could opt not to draw, so that way you could just get your drains in next turn without having to pay for them. It is a consideration. It's probably not the best one. But it depends on what else you have. If this is the only ship in your deck, then it might be worth considering. Because once you lose this, and if you don't have a way to get it back right away, which he doesn't, and I mean, there is that one on the edge in there. So maybe he can loop it back later and reuse it. But it's at least worth considering the option as I'm talking through it. I mean, obviously you clear this out. Stalker's still over here. So not necessarily like you're gaining a huge advantage, but you do mean you put the Emperor out of play. If you draw high enough, you possibly put a second guy out of play. Emperor covers 9, so he's going to cover most of it. In this case, he only drew 8, so it would. But if you know, even if you're thinking to yourself, I got 5s and 6s, maybe I can get both, you're still not going to clear the shuttle. So I think I almost like not drawing Battle Destiny here and just throwing away a character to Savrip, keeping the ship, and then making him react to either moving the ship away again or moving Stalker. He'd probably move the shuttle away, and then you get free drains. I think that's the scenario I like better here. So because now he has to lose his ship. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a total of 10 because of the +2 from the objective. So Emperor only covers 9, which doesn't get it. So Oswald's got to go as well. But the shuttle is still around. And now he's going to move everything and move the party over in front of Luke. And he's just going to draw a few cards. So yeah, I'm guessing he's really clutching the fact that Lightside probably does not have another ship handy. And Unita would also be pretty huge if they happen to have that, just to take the Falcon back into hand. But he did save a couple force, so we'll guess Matt has another barrier. Leia does add 2 to the drains, though, so that's a drain of 3 at the docking bay. Luke will get a lightsaber, so that's going to hit the Grand Inquisitor. Lando's going to come down, see what he does. If he draws out the barrier, he does. It might still be worth battling anyway. I mean, you're down in power quite a bit, but you've got a Luke in hand to cover it, and you're down 21 to 8. Eh. You'd have to lose the Luke and the Leia. There's the on the edge he was looking for. Put a card back. So he'll set that up with a decent 5 or 6 Destiny, and that'll retrieve a bunch of cards, and then he can 3PO his way back to his Han Chewie Falcon. He does pull a trample, and he's going to trample Lando. And succeed. It's going to be expensive, Lando, though. It's going to cost him 5 to take him back into hand and 5 more to get back out. Thrawn for forfeit fodder. He doesn't have enough force left to play the Clash. If he was Belugo, thank you for subscribing and joining us here at the Star Wars Network. So yeah, he could on the edge Luke and make him lost if he were really in trouble of getting overflowed. But if he had canceled Sovereign or something like that, um, I was really about to take a beat down. You can suicide your own Luke. You just pick 7 because I think that's, or you pick 6, and then as long as you don't draw a 7, which I don't think we've seen any in his deck, um, then Luke would be lost and go away. Assuming your opponent doesn't have a dark time, to subtract 1 from your draw or add 1 to your draw to make sure that you succeed. That would be the problem. Could be a problem. So more guys going to die here. He loses by 17, which would be, what, a Luke and an Obi? Savrip, Luke. Savrip both Lukes. The Grand Inquisitor is hit. He's got to go. He drew pretty high himself. Yep, he just pops both Lukes with the Savrip. That's why there's like 4 counters to that card. Masterful Move combo also cancels it, I believe. Oh, looks like we're going to get a revert. Sometimes the game logs freeze up when we get the reverts, though. Oh no. I guess they're discussing it, which we can't see in the chat. Yep. We go to here, we get the Battle Destinies. Maybe he's going to forfeit things differently. Yeah, so he still draws high. Yeah, I think in this case, if you're dark side and you have to lose 6, 7, 8 in terms of forfeit, you just lose like Thrawn and Marquand and Blizzard 6 over there, and you keep Veers and Blizzard 2 together. Yeah, you just forfeit stuff differently like that. But vehicles, out of play. The only cards he has in his lost pile are the cards that got lost there by force draining. So, very silly light side deck. When it works awesomely. And maybe this is a more maybe this way has worked very consistently for Gavin. I don't know. He could be 3-30 with this deck, and this happens to be one of the games he won with it. I don't know. You'll have to ask him. Yep, and he'll just move Veers and Blizzard 2 away. But now Lights Out will get a couple big drains in. Oh, I don't know how I feel about this one. So, just for you guys, we're going to walk you through this. So he plays On the Edge, which we talked about earlier. Use a force, target a rebel of ability greater than 2. In this case, he's got Leia or Luke to pick from. Choose a number from 1 to 6. You may retrieve that amount from your lost pile if you draw a destiny greater than the number you picked. If you fail, the rebel is lost. So he picked 4. So he's got to pay 1 to play it. And then if he's right, he's got to draw higher than 4. And if he's right, he pays 4 and he retrieves 4 cards. He's got 15 force left, so he spends 4. It takes him down to 11 after the retrieval. You wonder what else is he going to deploy here. He's probably going to deploy Obi and Battle and try and clear this, because he doesn't have enough force left to grab anything. Obi's going to draw a Destiny, and it's going to be +2 attrition. So that's going to be, because those are the 4s that he drew before when he swung, so that's going to be 6, which is going to have to clear Veers and the Blizzard Walker. So he needs 4 to retrieve, taking him down to 11, 5 for OB plus 1 to battle is 6, taking him down, leaving him with 5 extra force. If he's planning on force draining anywhere, maybe he's not going to drain. If he's planning on force draining anywhere, you would want to force drain with Leia first because she's the bigger drain. She's draining for 3, and ultimate resistance isn't out. So you'd want to do this first before you target her, just in case something goes wrong and he plays a Dark Time and she ends up dying. And that flips your objective back and all that kind of stuff, and then it makes the rest of your turn, your OB play and all that, not very good. But he may not be he may not be planning on draining this turn. He may be planning on, well, he could pick Lando up out of the Bacta tank and send Lando on a suicide run as well. He can't afford to do all 3 things in the turn, but he could pick Lando up, deploy Obi, battle, and then he's got Lando to forfeit to keep Obi on the table. Is a play, so he might be spending all his force to do that. But if he's planning on draining, you should drain first. And that's why, yeah, the Dark Time. Because he just plays a Dark Time, he subtracts 1 from that 5, makes it a 4, which is the number that he picked, which then means that he fails, and then Leia dies. The code clearance shield is where so if opponent just retrieved force using an interrupt routine effect, place that card here. Opponent's force retrieval is reduced by X, where X equals the number of cards here. So he pays 4 force, he retrieves 4 force, and the card gets stacked here, so all future retrieval is now reduced by 1. So in addition to grabbing the on the edge so he can't get it back some other way, any other sources of retrieval he would have, whether it be a Jedi Levitation, a Walkling, a defensive shield, weapons display, or whatever like that, that would let him retrieve 1. All those little things are now reduced by 1, which means he's not retrieving at all for the rest of those little interactions. Draw their fire, which says retrieve 1. He would not any longer. He does pay to drain. So yeah, so he should have done that first. And he's just going to pay to drain there as well. Okay, so he's not sending Obi. He's just going to cause some more damage, put some more cards in the lost pile and whatnot. And then I guess we'll see him just draw a few. Okay. He'll get the barrier, which I think was one of the cards he drew. Yep. Did Chris pop out and go play a game and lose? Yeah, it happens. It's incredibly difficult to go 12-0 in the OCS. There are so many great players playing, and you never know who you're going to get matched up with, and with what deck they might be using. Since you can switch decks between games and things like that. So very difficult to go 12-0. We've only had a couple of people do it. Even 11-1 is pretty challenging. To just play flawlessly and have good matchups for an entire month, or 10 days if you 6 days if you're one of those people who just crams all their games in the first week. I mean, today's what, the 3rd, and we already have some people who have 5, 6, 7 games played. All right, so Matt's gonna flip himself back again he deploys guys, he moves to block, and then he'll move veers over and then get back in. And he'll play an out of commission to put another card out of play. Well, we're up to 13 cards out of play. This is getting pretty crazy. So we've got a whole slew of characters all out of play, and a vehicle, and 2 interrupts now. Well, Grady, welcome back from your loss, and you're just in time to see Rescue the Princess shenanigans. So he activated back to the it could be worse. He docking bait transited Simalu over in front of Leia to block the big drain. There's the draw their fire. That's going to cause some force loss. It'll also force him to have to spend a force to use any interrupts. So if he wanted to play something like Gick, it would cost him one to do it. And Matt's just going to concede. I guess he doesn't have. Simalu's going to get hit before if it's 0, and he's going to get 2 Destiny on top of it. And I guess he doesn't have a Gick in the 5 cards in his hand. Or if he does, well, Simalu's going to die. Obi's going to go lost. And then Luke's going to battle here, and he's going to clear all this. So he's just running out of stuff to work with anyway. So thank you very much, Gavin, for sending this in. It was very enjoyable watching. I know a few of us got a kick out of it. And congratulations on finding a way to make Rescue the Princess work in 2019. And obviously keep working on it and keep using it. And who knows? Maybe we'll see if somebody actually plays it in a live event. Maybe someone will play it at Continentals. Gavin, you should come to Continentals in Minnesota, and then you can play this. And people will have just read every card because they'll have no idea what your objective does every turn. So, but that was the game I wanted to watch. Looks like we got a few people. Oh, looks like Chris Kelly and Jared are going to go toe to toe. We play this game pretty much these two at every local we have because these are both guys in my area, and it's usually hit go hunt down between them as well. So that's probably nothing new. And then Ross playing another game here. All right, so we're going to go ahead. We'll check the scoreboard real quick. So, yep, he lost. Jared's already at 7 games. Some of these other guys are at 5 and whatnot. So, we're going to wrap it up for this week. Thank you guys all very much for watching. I know we went a little longer. It's almost 2 hours tonight. Definitely appreciate it. Be sure and obviously continue subscribing. We're back on our regular schedule on Mondays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we talk about all things Star Wars CCG and see what's happening in the game and what's going on. Have a great night. I'll see you guys next Monday night. Same bat time, same bat channel.